Hi everyone, for our video today, we'll be playing with the Danessa Myricks Groundwork palette. So this is the neutral one, and I have been wanting to play around with this for quite some time, and I'm so glad that I'm finally doing it now. So we'll try to see if this will work for my makeup sentiments and if this fits into my makeup kit. But for sure it will. But it's just a matter of performance and also on how easy it is to actually use and to layer on with other products in my kit. Okay, so before we continue, when I first purchased this, I saw crystallization on top of two of the creamy eyeshadows, and I did some research on Reddit, and they said there that it was kind of like a normal occurrence on this palette because of the oxalate that is used in this formula. So there was really nothing to worry about, so I was actually glad about that. So all is good now. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to insert a swatch here of all of this colors, just so that you guys can see how it registers on my skin with olive undertones. All right, so I swatched from left to right, top to bottom. Okay, and this is how they all look like swatched in my arm. So this is the color Sandstone, this is the color Desert, this is the color Mirage, this is the color Chiseled, this is the color Sculpted, and this is the color Stone, this is the color Core, this is the color Harvest, this is the color Bark, and this is the color Tourmaline. So as you guys can see here in the swatch, we can see that the clay or the putty formula has a much more lighter tone than the powder counterparts, which was quite a surprise for me because I thought it was going to be the other way around. So my first impressions in terms of texture when I first swatched this on my arm, I kind of like the creamy texture here of the bigger pans because it's a little bit buttery. It's very soft, it's clay-like, but I think this just gives me enough playtime and also movement when I am going to be using this either on the eyes or on the face, because this palette is said to be an all-over use palette. So we'll try to see if we can do that today. Now, of all of the colors here, I do have to say that there are some colors here which tends to go warm, which I appreciate because again, I have olive undertones in my skin, and warmer color of eyeshadows or pigments works better for my skin. It just really pops, and that's it. And also one other thing, the color Black here, Tourmaline, it has a substantial opacity to it, but it's not super black though. So it's a very nice, very sooty kind of a black, almost like a charcoal kind of a color, and it also has a slight sheen to it, basing off of my swatch here. So I'm actually quite interested to see how this will register on my eyes later. Okay, so as for now, let us try these colors on my face. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to apply an eye base on one eye, just to see how the colors actually look like when you apply it straight onto bare skin, or if you have an eye base of sorts on your eyes. So we'll just see if that's going to be helpful in maybe elevating the brightness of the color, or even the opacity of the color of the eyeshadow product or the product in itself. Okay, all right, so what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna use the color Sandstone, which is this nice yellowy shade here, and I'm gonna be using the creamy formula first. It's very putty like, so I think you should just use it in a tapping motion, the brush, because if you use it in a sweeping motion, it kind of moves the product. It's really like clay. Very interesting texture. This is the first time I'm encountering something like this. Okay, and now I'm just spreading the product all over my eyelid, all the way into the brow bone area. And that actually did a nice job of neutralizing the redness in my eyes, and it also created a nice brightness into my eye that I actually like. It's actually a very nice base color. I like it. And this cream formula was actually very easy to spread out and to blend out. Love that. Okay, so let's try it on the other eye now. So because this other eye has an eye base, so the color is just more vibrant, and I lost the slip that I initially had with this formula. But other than that, it's still very easy to use, and it's still very easy to blend. Very interesting what an eye base can do to an eyeshadow product, right? And by the way, I'm shooting under natural light today, so this is how it looks like. Even if it looks like, you know, very warm here on the pan, there's a certain hint of gray tone that I can see with the eyeshadow or with the color of the product. Or maybe that just happens with the neutralization of it, like, you know, with the color when it got mixed with the olive undertones of my skin. But so far, it's good. It's okay. It's a very nice brightening color that I actually like. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this color. Okay, no, I won't. So let's do all cream products first before I set everything with, like, you know, their powder counterparts. Okay, all right, so what color should I use, you guys? Okay, so I think I'll start with the neutral shades first. So let's just try to build, like, you know, intensity slowly, and let's see how this palette will actually, like, you know, introduce itself to me. So I'm going to use this shade now. This is called Desert, and I'm going to use the creamy formula again, and I'm gonna use this like all over my socket line. That's actually quite a nice blend, and the pigmentation level of this shade is also quite nice. It's great as a transition color, or even like as a color that you can use to blend edges out. Again, very nice formula, nice and creamy, and it has a hint of like powder on it, especially when it starts to dry up. So I think that the powder counterpart here is what you'll use just to set the color that you used. Okay, so let me try and go a little bit deeper, and I'm gonna use the color Sculpted now. So I'm just going to be using this T4 brush from Sonia G. Lightly tap it here onto the pan, and then use this on my socket line area just to enhance that. And it actually did the job quite fast and very easy. Again, I'm actually so surprised on how easy it is to work with these products. And so far, I'm using very light, like, you know, strokes or even pressure, and it's actually delivering, like, you know, the color quite nicely onto my lids. But do take note also that, like, you know, I have medium skin tone, so I don't really need to use a lot of deeper shades in order for it to, like, you know, really pop on my skin. Okay, so I like that, and let me just get more intense. Let me try the color Bark now. I'm gonna apply that here on the outer portions of my eye, like here in the outer V area. Blend that into the socket line. It's actually blending very well. I'm actually quite surprised with this. Like, you know, because the first time I actually tried out Danessa's products, like, you know, the ones with the Upsilite, like, you know, formula, were her blushes, and I found it a little difficult to get to know. And that's why I was also quite apprehensive in getting this, because I might have problems with that. But, like, you know, if you just have the right tools with you, and then also, like, you know, the right approach, then they will actually work for you. Kind of like this. Again, the tones are very neutral for these eyeshadows. There's no sparkle whatsoever. There's no brightness on it. So it's actually quite perfect, like, you know, to lay down the groundwork, quote unquote, of your eyeshadow look. And let me continue to build intensity there, and I'm using the same color Bark, and I'm just gonna apply a hint of that here in the outer V portions. Okay, so I have realized that if you actually use, like, you know, airier bristles to pick up these, like, you know, clay-like formulas from Danessa, you actually get a very nice wash of color. But if you use a nice, dense, and strong bristled brush head like this Hakuhodo 13, what's this? 138? Yeah, this is the 138, and this is made of weasel. And it's actually like, quite strong and resilient. And I can see that it actually picks up more pigment from the pan. And it actually also delivers a stronger color on your eyelid. Very interesting. So again, as I've said earlier, if you just find the right tools for the kind of makeup application that you prefer, you can make things work with you. And just approach everything with caution. Just do it slowly. I am also finding that I am able to blend out the clay formula of this palette quite easily. And I'm also able to create a gradation of color, which I actually like. Very interesting. I was not expecting this at all. Okay, so let me try to create a lift now for my eye and blend that into my eyes. Look at that. I love it. Nice lift going on. Beautiful. Okay, I was not expecting that at all. Okay, so I'm gonna get a little of the the color bark now, and then a little bit of the color sculpt. And I'm just gonna apply a little bit of that here in the outer portions of my lower lash line. Nice intensity. I'll just continue to buff that out, and then let me create a flick a little bit so that we have a lift going on for my eyes. And whatever is left on the brush head, I'm just gonna apply that here in the outer V portions, at the outer corner, and try to create more intensity there. Ooh, I love that. Very beautiful. What do you guys think? I totally approve. I love it. And for sure, in just doing this activity alone, if you're someone who likes to wear smoky eye looks, this palette is going to be perfect. Especially if you just like that very nice, matte kind of a smoky eye look. This for sure is going to be absolutely wonderful. Okay, so now I think I should get the other palette. I forgot the name. The one with the rosier tones. That could be a nice bridal palette, or that could be a nice everyday palette. Because not everyone actually likes to wear neutral colors on a daily basis. But for me, this actually does work. And I can definitely use this for work, especially when I'm shooting a film. This could be fantastic. Now it's time to try the black shade. So this is the color Tourmaline. And I'm just using this rougher number 23 brush. Now I'm gonna use this as my eyeliner for this eye. And I'm just gonna tap the brush head here as close to my lash line as possible. Really blend it close to my eyelashes. And I actually love that there's no fallout. I actually didn't wear foundation yet because I was scared that there might be fallout. Because sometimes when you're working with gel or cream or even these types of eyeshadow products, sometimes when you're really buffing in the color into the eye, you're using very hard windshield wiper motions, you always tend to flick out the pigment or the product, and you always end up with fall down. But so far, I'm not seeing any on my upper cheeks today. But then again, I'm also someone who uses very light strokes when I'm applying makeup. Okay, that was actually very easy to apply. It was also very easy to blend. It's not a super black color, but I think you can build this up. You can intensify it. Now, I kind of like that because sometimes I don't like going on full black with an eyeliner or an eyeshadow product, because sometimes it can be overpowering. And this could just be a very nice base color that you can use, and then you can go on and use either a liquid eyeliner or even an eyeshadow, just to increase opacity and intensity. Ooh, that's absolutely wonderful. Okay, so let me blend out the edges now, or just playing around. And what color should I try? So let's try the color Stone. So this is a very nice gray tone to it. And I'm just gonna apply that right on the edges of the black there, just to soften it. And that way we're also getting a nice gradation of color. It's not too stark, but it's actually like, very well blended. Then let's just buff everything so we have a nice soft application of color. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a smaller eyeliner brush. And I have here the G007 from Hakuhodo. And I'm going back into the tourmaline color here. Now the brush head of this is made of weasel, so it's stronger. And I can see that it's actually picking up a good amount of product, but I'm just really soaking the brush head with the formula. And now I'm gonna apply this onto my lash line. Really smudging the color in between my lashes. And because the eyeliner brush here is quite small, I can get more detail and I can apply more intensity in the area where I want that black to be. And maybe let's create a little flick at the end, at the outer corner, just to give the illusion of a lift. And then let me blend that into the eyeliner, creating a very nice soft lifted look. Okay, so I'm just going to buff out and to blend out everything. And I'm actually quite surprised on how easy it is to actually use these products, especially the clay formula. I love it. Okay, so out of curiosity, so now let's try to build intensity, and let's set everything now with the powder counterparts. Okay, all right, so now I have the Shodo 00 brush, and I'm getting the powder here from the sandstone color. Remove any excess, and let me just add that here under my brow bone, just to set, so I can see some vibrancy coming out now. And then now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the color sculpted, the powder, and pick up a little bit of the color bark, and then I'm just going to brush that along my socket line and blend everything. Absolutely gorgeous. I wasn't expecting that. Very pretty. Okay, now I'm gonna get the color Desert. I'm using this Yoshiki by Koyudo Fude Bobo brush. So this is a blending brush. Remove any excess, and then I'm gonna use this to set the outer portions of my eyeshadow. Then buff out, because I think that will just help to blend out the edges. And then with the Shodo brush, I'm just gonna buff the light color here, the sandstone. I'm not adding any more color, but whatever is left on the brush head here should blend fantastically. Love that. Nice blend going on. And then next, what I'm going to do, I have my Koyudo Kakishibuzome brush here. And I'm gonna get a mix of, again, the sculpted and the bark, but I have, in terms of percentage, I have more of the color bark. And I'm just gonna apply that color here in the outer V portion. Just tap it also lightly, and then just blend it very lightly, because that will just add a nice hint of intensity there, and also depth. No fallout whatsoever. I love that. And whatever is left on the tip of the brush head here, I'm gonna run that into my lower lash line and lift and blend. And finally, let us set the lash line with some black powder from tourmaline. And what brush should I use? Okay, so I have here the Hakuhodo G5512 brush, and I love this because it's quite small. And then as you guys can see here on my eyes, I have small eyelids in terms of real estate, especially with the fact when I open my eyes, my lash line actually hits my socket line. So I can't go overboard with my eyeliner because I lose my mobile lid if I do so. Anyway, so let me just tap the brush into the black powder now. The powders also have a very nice consistency, I have to say. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just adding a lot of the intensity of the black powder here in the outer corners of my lash line. And then I'm adding the color halfway. Like, you know, I'm not going all the way with the powder. Well, maybe I should add a little bit just to set the clay formula. But I don't want to add too much because I want to concentrate the, like, you know, depthness of the black color here in the outer portions of my eye, just so that it makes my eyes look wider and less droopy. Okay, and with whatever is left on the brush head here, I'm just going to gently apply that in the outer corners where I created a flick, so that we have a nice soft lift going on there. Oh, I forgot one thing, by the way. Let's go back into the sandstone color here. I'm gonna get the powder and I'm just gonna lightly dab that here into, like, you know, the inner corner of my eyes, all the way into the middle of my mobile lid, and that kind of like completes the look. Look at that very nice eyeshadow look, you guys. I was not expecting this at all. So let me add some mascara. So this is the Lisa Eldridge Kitten Flick Mascara. Okay, wonderful. So my first impression for these products from Danessa is that I like the clay putty formula here, and it just took me a little while to get to know it, wherein I don't really have to press too hard to get the product, and it was actually very easy to blend on the eyes. Very beautiful. It gives out a very nice, you know, balanced texture, and I also saw that there was no skipping of the color when I, like, you know, applied it on the eyes. And I also do understand now why the, like, you know, powder products are very small, because you actually don't need much of it, because the clay or the putty formula does more of the job than the eyeshadow products. And again, they actually do apply extremely well, and you don't need a lot of pressure. You don't need to really press on it. Again, depending on the bristle type that you use, depending on how, like, you know, dense it is, how, like, you know, compact it is, you'll pick up more color. But if you have fluffy, airier eyeshadow brushes, you actually pick up a well-balanced amount of color or product. Okay, so what do you guys think? I absolutely j'adore how this came out. And mind you, I'm someone who doesn't like a lot of, like, you know, neutral shades, but because this, like, you know, Groundwork palette, this Neutrals Groundwork palette has some warmth in them, I was actually able to use it to my advantage, and I love that. Like, you know, it's not, the colors here did not dull down my skin. It also did not dull down my eye color, and it worked very well. I was actually very surprised by this, because again, like, you know, there are some neutrals there wherein it's just a little bit too gray that, like, you know, it doesn't really work on me. But so far with these products, like, you know, they were absolutely fantastic. Very easy to layer, very easy to blend. Like, you know, I'm just, like, you know, adding some final touches, and I find that I'm also able to layer the clay putty formula on top of the powder nicely, and it didn't cause any patchiness whatsoever. I love that. Okay, what do you guys think? Okay, so let's go a little bit dramatic, and I would like to use some of the other colors on this palette now. So I am going to start with the color Harvest. So I'm going to be using my Refer 00 brush again, and this is how much product this brush head picks up. And I'm just gonna apply this all over my eye. Okay, I'm gonna add more intensity in the outer V portion and really sculpt the color into my socket line and into my crease, just so that we already have, like, a nice, like, you know, lay down of color there. And of course, let's just, like, you know, always apply the color upward and outward so that we have a nice lift. And let's just blend everything. Now, because this eye has some eye base already, I find that it kind of, like, affects, like, you know, how it slips, as I said earlier. But it's still very easy to use though. Like, you know, there's just a little bit of cling, because after all, like, you know, the eye base always does that to eyeshadow products. But, like, you know, it's really not that difficult. The formula of this clay type putty eyeshadow products from hers still work very well. Then I'm getting this Refer 26 brush, and I'm picking up more of the color Harvest here. Really work it into the brush head. Then I'm gonna apply that here in the outer V portions and blend that into my socket line, because I want to add intensity there and really, blend it well into the middle of my, mobile lid, and just really continue to work it and to blend it. And also one other thing, by the way, I have noticed that, depending on how you load, the clay formula on your brush, the brush head will actually apply the color in the area where you first, lay down the brush. So if you are someone who's thinking of creating a smoky eye look, make sure that you apply the intensity of the color as close to your lash line first, because as soon as you start blending it out, it really thins out, gradually, and as you guys can see here, and you don't really need to, really buff out much. This really cuts down on the time for your blending, and it just aids also in ensuring that you get a very nice, soft, diffuse color when you're working. So just make sure that, when you're applying these clay putty formulas, you already have an idea of where you want the color to be concentrated, just so that you won't have any difficulty blending out the color, and you can already get the shape that you want. Do not approach eyeshadow application as just oh, I'm just gonna buff in all of the color and then I'm just gonna blend it out later. No. So before the brush actually lands on your eyelids, you already have an idea of the eye look that you are going for. It just makes it easier that way, trust me. Okay, so speaking of blending, I have here the Refer number 32 brush, and I'm just gonna mount that into my socket line area. And I landed the brush at an angle like this, and this will just really help me to blend out and to buff out the color, because the angle of this brush head really fits there, and it just really helps you to buff out in no time. And also one thing, by the way, I do have to say that the majority of the brushes that I am using right now, they are Chikuhodo brush heads with persimmon tannins. So I find I love these eyeshadow brushes because I find that they're quite soft, but they're also quite resilient, wherein you don't need a lot of pressure to pick up product, and you don't really need to work so much to blend out the color. And I'm also using a majority of my Refer eyeshadow brushes because I find that these Refer eyeshadow brushes have the capacity to blend out very clay-like or liquid or even gel type of eyeshadow products. So I'm actually glad I was able to do this, because I don't get to play much with my Refer eyeshadow brushes, especially if I'm always constantly using powder eyeshadows. Okay, all right, I love the blend that I have here, so let's add more intensity. So I'm going to be using the color Bark now. So I have here the Pencil Pro brush from Sonia G, picking up the clay formula, adding more intensity in the outer V portion, really blending it into my crease, into my socket line. And then I have my Sonia G Pencil S, and I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that Bark color and a little bit of the Harvest color, and I'm going to apply that here on my lower lash line. Now I would really like to go all the way into the inner corner here. It's coming together, and then with more of the color Bark, I'm going to apply that here on the outer portion and just blend slowly. And then whatever color is left here on the brush head, I'm going to bring that into my upper lash line. Then let's just blend out the edges. Okay, so now I would like to get the color Core, but I'm going to be very careful with this because it might just be a little bit too orange for me. But for sure, this is going to be a nice transition shade. But I'm going to just lightly press on that. And I'm going to get a little bit of the color Mirage here. And I'm going to use that to blend out the edges here. Okay, good. It's not that orange. Nice control of color. But if you're someone who has blue eyes or green eyes, this color would work fantastic on you. Okay, and now I'm gonna get the powder from the color Sandstone here, and I'm going to apply that as close to my brow bone as possible. Just underneath it to buff out the edges and to blend it. And let me add a little bit of that here in the inner corner, just to add some light in that area. And also here. And now let's add the black. So I'm gonna start with the clay tourmaline formula first. And I'm gonna apply that all over my upper lash line. Again, I'm not being very careful, I'm not being very specific with it, just being playful. But then again, I always have to remember that I actually prefer to have a thicker application of eyeliner, quote unquote, in the outer portions of my eye. And I want to keep it thin as I near my inner corners. And whatever is left on the brush head, I'm going to apply that here in the outer corners of my lower lash line. And then with the brush that I used earlier for the color Harvest, I'm going to just blend everything together. Again, create a lift just to make sure that we have a nice blend there. Okay, so I have the crease M brush from Sonia G, and I'm just going to lightly press it here on the clay formula of the color Tourmaline, and I'm just going to lightly press that here into the outer V portions. I'm using very light feathery strokes here, and this should really do in adding a very nice softness of smoke of this color. And that should also help with the blending and adding of intensity in the area where I want to. So let me press more into the tourmaline and into the bark color and into the harvest color. And I'm going to apply that in the outer areas of the area where I applied the black color first. So this should really help with the blending. And also in giving me the shape that I need for my eye. And just one final addition of color of the black here into the outer V area. And just blend. Okay, and now that I'm quite happy with that, I'm going to be using the eyeliner brush that I used earlier. And I'm just going to apply the color Tourmaline as close to my lash line as possible so that we have a nice intensity of color there. Okay, so that's a much more intense application of the clay putty color now on my eye, and also I did apply it in my upper waterline. So let's see if that will transfer into my lower waterline, and I kind of like that look because I don't want to have a very nice intense black here in my lower waterline, and whatever residue that transfers from the upper waterline to the lower waterline should be good for me for the time being. Okay, so we have this very nice smoky eye look going on, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set my eyes now with the powder counterparts of whatever color that I use. Okay, so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the color Harvest. So I'm going to use this fluffy airy brush, and I'm just going to lightly tap that here all over my eyelid, and then I'm just gonna blend that into my socket line and buff it out. Okay, next I'm going to be getting this white Canadian squirrel brush from Sonia G. This is the TS3, and I'm going to be getting some of the powder from the core color here with a little bit of the color from Mirage, remove the excess. And I'm going to apply that here in the outermost portion of my blend. And I'm going to lift that out. Okay, next I'm going to be getting a clean, blending brush. And I'm going to get a little bit of the color Harvest here. A little bit of the color Bark and a little bit of the color Tourmaline. Press it at the back of my hand. And blend it into the areas where I mix those colors together. And then I'm gonna get a little bit of the color Bark and the color Tourmaline, and I'm gonna press that into the outer V portion of my eye, buff it, blend everything, set everything, and then with my small G5512 brush, I'm gonna get the powder of the tourmaline color here, and I'm going to tap that color on top of the clay putty color to set the black color, and then whatever is left on the brush head, I'm gonna do that here in the lower lash line. Let me get a small eyeliner, like, you know, pencil type of a brush. Hang on, I still have those. There you go. So I'm getting this eyeliner brush from the Sunset Crane set of Sonia G, and I'm going to be getting a little bit of the color Harvest here, mix in with a little bit of the color Core, and I'm just going to apply that here all over my lower lash line. Okay, and let's add some mascara now. Lovely. I love that. I love how we achieved, like, you know, a nice defined eye look, and then also a very nice smoky eye look. Now, since this is the Groundwork palette from Danessa, I believe we can also, like, you know, add more accent into our eye look today. So what I have here are some of her color fix. So I'm gonna get a little bit of the color. What's the color here? This is Romance. It has a pinky shade to it with nice sparkle. And let me get this, like, you know, nice airy synthetic brush, and let me just add a little bit of that here all over my what you call this, my mobile eyelid, because I think this will just, like, you know, add a nice hint of drama there. I love how it all blended together. There's just some patchiness going on, so let me get a clean brush here and let me just blend out the cream eyeshadow. It's layering very well together. I love that. That's what I was hoping for, because usually that's how I like to do, like, you know, eye makeup looks. I like layering a hint of liquid or cream eyeshadow on top of, like, you know, powder products, especially, like, you know, as a finishing type of a look. And they're actually working very well together. Love that. Okay, and let's add some hint of drama also on this eye. Okay, so I have my Chanel Ombre Premier Lac. So this also has a pinky tone to it, but it's not as vibrant as the Danessa Myricks ones, because the Danessa Myricks, the Romance color, has some violet on it, but this one has a very nice, like, you know, pinky golden tone to it. So I have this Refer brush. This is the 01 brush. Just loading the color lightly on the tips. And I'm just gonna add it here. I don't really want to have an intense, like, you know, sparkly color on this eye, because it's not a smoky kind of an eye look. But this, like, you know, liquid eyeshadow from Chanel just adds a nice balanced shimmer to it, adding some drama but without overdoing it. Now I'm also seeing that they're working very well together in terms of formula. There's no creasing going on with the color. I also don't see any of the, like, you know, colors migrating into my crease, because after all, I did not use an eye base on this eye. Well, on this eye I did. Now I'm sure by now you would have seen that you can use this palette for practically everything, and I can say that that's true. And for sure you can also use this, like, you know, to add like, you know, intensity into your brows or some shadowing. So let's try a little bit of this. So which color should I use? Let's try the color Stone here. So I'm gonna pick up some color from the putty formula first, and then let me just add that here. I'm using the PS, I forgot the name of this, but this is like the eyeshadow brush from the Passion series of Chikuhodo, and I love the bristles of this because it really, like, you know, picks up product nicely and also delivers it amazingly well. Yep, so I can see that I'm actually able to apply intensity of the color, but it's a very soft kind of a color, so If you are someone who actually likes to fill in your brows, you can definitely use this. But I actually prefer to apply my brows like, using an eyebrow pen. So I try to imitate like, how brow hairs actually look. Because I can't really overfill my brows because that's just going to overpower my face. But I'm glad to see that we can actually use this, to add dimension and intensity. Again, I'm actually quite surprised on how easy it is to work with a putty formula. Amazing. Okay, let's try on this eyebrow now. So I'm just filling in some of the gaps, not really overdoing the shape. And now let's try to see if I could use the black tourmaline color. And let me just tap that into my scar here. That did well. I like that. Where's the brush? Okay, here. So let me lift that into place. That was nice. So let me get the brush that I used for my eyeliner earlier. And maybe that can just help me to add more detailing. Yep, I like that. I was not expecting this to happen. It actually did help me to create like, a nice hint of intensity in my brow area without overdoing it. But then again, I'm always very light-handed with my makeup application. Kind of like that. Okay, so we saw now that we can use this palette for the eyes and for the brows. Now let's try this on the face. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to apply some foundation off camera, and then I'm going to come back. Okay, so this is my base down, and I started first by applying some of the MAC Prep and Prime Fix Plus in Rose, just to tone my skin a little bit because I'm a little bit oily today. And then for my foundation, I used two colors from the limited edition release of Kiko Milano for their Holiday Wonderlights collection, number 3 and number 5. I used the color number 5 all over my face, and then for my under eye area, I used number 3. And then I'm not using any concealer today because I like how this Kiko Milano foundation is looking. And by the way, the skincare products that I use for this video are listed down on the description box. You can go and check it out if you're interested to see what I applied before I started doing this video, okay? And I think I'm good for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and see how these colors are gonna apply, contouring product. Sorry, that's the garbage truck. They're just passing by. So anywho, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to get this fluffy brush from Sonia G. This is the Worker L brush, and I'm gonna pick up a little bit of the color Sculpted, and I'm just gonna apply this on top of my cheekbones to see if it can apply color. Okay, I'm actually seeing a hint of depth now, which I actually like, and I kind of like the fact that it's not that gray, because the problem with some sculpting powders or products is that if it's too gray, it looks muddy. But I kind of like that there's a hint of warmth here, which is already working with my skin tone, especially with the undertones in my skin, and they're kind of neutralizing each other, and they're kind of blending. Okay, look at that. So I'm using a very nice small but airy brush here, and I kind of like how this brush actually applied this putty for contouring, because at least it's already well blended, it's airy, and it's already buffed out at the same time. And then let's try adding some nose contour. So I'm using the Detail Pro, also from Sonia G. Pick up just a little bit of the product and lightly brush it through the bridge of my nose. But again, not too much. Kind of like that. I actually love using the Detail Pro for applying nose contouring, because it just has a way of applying a very nice diffused color, but it also depends on how how much real estate you have in your nose, because if you have a much more smaller nose than I do, you need to use a smaller brush for this particular procedure. Okay, so let me just buff out the edges, reduce the roundness there. Fantastic. And with the brush that I used for the concealer in my under eye area, well, quote-unquote concealer, because I didn't use any concealer today, I'm just going to blend everything and to buff out everything. Okay, I love that. And of course, if you actually want to have a much more contoured nose, you can always use a smaller brush. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a little bit of the color sculpted and the color chiseled, blend them together, and become more detailed with my contouring application. All the way to the bridge of my nose. Wow. I haven't sculpted my nose this way in a long time, and it's kind of like putting me off. But again, I'm actually very surprised on how easy it is to actually apply and blend out these putty formulas from the Groundwork palette. Sorry if I keep on repeating myself, but I'm actually truly amazed by it. Okay, so with the brush that I used for my foundation earlier, I'm just patting it in, ensuring that the edges are soft and it looks like shadow. Let me also just blend into the contouring product that I got here. There's already a nice shadow going on. I'm not really overdoing it, because if my philosophy with contouring is that you don't really have to go overboard. Okay, especially if you're someone who's just walking down the street on a regular day. Just remember that the light is always overhead, and that already casts the shadow that we need to actually help contour our face. But I'm so glad though that it's not making me look muddy at the moment. Okay, all right, and finally, let's just add a hint of color on my cheeks. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a little bit of this Yummy Skin, what's the full name of this? Yummy Skin Blurring Balm Powder Flushed. Okay, there you go, I finally got it. So I just have a small amount of it here on the pulse of my arm, and with the Sonia G Sheer Buffer Brush, I'm just picking up the product and applying it here on my cheeks. And I'm using a very minute amount of this blush because this is so pigmented, and for someone who is not melanated, if I use too much of these Yummy Skin Blurring Balm Powder Flushed, it just will really look like I'm flushed, or I'm over blushing. All right, I love that. All right, and with some of Danessa's Universal Blurring Balm Powder, I'm just gonna pick up a little bit of this and apply it here in my under eye area, and also here on my nose, the forehead area. Again, I'm just being very specific with it, doing a patchwork kind of setting, and also a little bit of it here on my cheeks, just to blend the blush and the contouring product that I used on my cheeks. Alright, so I believe we have come to the end of my vlog for today. I hope that you guys enjoyed me showing you how I got to know the Danessa Myricks Defining Neutrals Groundwork palette. Okay, so if you guys have any more questions about how I use this, or any other products that I use today, please let me know down in the comments box, and let's have a conversation about it. Okay, but before I let you go, do you think I should get the other palette, the one with the pink? Please let me know, and maybe that's one thing that I'm gonna be getting next, and we'll be featuring in a future video. Okay, so I'm gonna let you guys go now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you're having a good day wherever you are. Bye.